In the past few weeks, the world has witnessed some of the most horrific scenes of brutality and violence exercised against Palestinians living in the occupied Palestinian territory. We've witnessed senseless taking of young, innocent lives, destruction of civilian infrastructure and livelihoods in an unbalanced power equation between an occupying power and a people resisting occupation. The Palestinian narrative evokes experiences of South Africa's own history of racial segregation and oppression. As oppressed South Africans, we experienced firsthand the effects of racial inequality and discrimination, and we are well aware of the long-term impact and consequences of these forms of racial discrimination. We believe an unwavering commitment is required to eradicate discrimination and policies of exclusion completely and permanently the world over. As the global community, we need to deepen our efforts to eradicate the scourge of racism and discrimination and allow those whose basic rights have been violated to enjoy the inherent human rights that others enjoy on a daily basis. Many of us take our fundamental freedoms for granted, but these remain absent for Palestinians living in the occupied territory. Various reports have pointed to the suffering experienced on a daily basis by the people of Palestine. The B'Tselem report provides a detailed account of the military occupation imposed on the approximately 5 million Palestinians living in the occupied territory, as well as laws and practices which are engineered to impede them from participating in the political system that governs their lives and determines their future. Human Rights Watch's recent report, published on Freedom Day of South Africa this year, draws similar conclusions. Regular land dispossession and illegal seizure of homes evoke apartheid forced removals and intolerable harm to all people. These are all actions that undermine the Palestinian people and deprive them of universal and inalienable rights to self-determination and equality. All these actions are fully against internationally adopted human rights instruments which we are all signatory to. They violate international law, provoke political tension, and continue to endanger international peace and security. The United Nations should be the champion which highlights principles of equality, non-discrimination, the right to self-determination as integral elements of basic human rights and fundamental freedoms. It has human rights instruments which should guide all its actions and its positions on world affairs. But we have to ask today, why is it that more than half a century later, the question of Palestine remains unresolved? And why is it that the people of Palestine are denied many of the rights contained in seminal UN human rights instruments, and all of us as the world idly watch as this happens? We seem to give no credence to our belief and accepted statements on the long accepted, long supported two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace. Decades of aggression have purposely made this internationally recognized concept almost improbable. The pivotal role played by the United Nations and civil society in supporting our struggle against apartheid, and the impact that this support had in us achieving our self-determination, must be the spur to the United Nations and its member states to join efforts to strengthen international action and coordination, to uphold international norms and standards as we together seek justice for the people of Palestine. We cannot become aware when there is aggression and death We must be aware and active all the time. With regard to the ongoing human rights violations that Palestinians endure, we urge the international community, and particularly the United Nations, to ensure the safeguarding of the rights of the Palestinian people. We welcome the initiative of the Human Rights Council to hold a special session on this matter, and we support the recent adoption of the Human Rights Council resolution, which establishes an international commission of inquiry to investigate violations in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and in Israel. However, action in this regard must be peremptory to avoid reducing these initiatives to feel-good talk shops. It is our sincerest hope that the Independent Commission of Inquiry will be established with all due haste to investigate all violations and abuses, and that the necessary action will be taken to follow up on the Commission findings. We call on all parliaments to deliver messages to the Human Rights Council urging action in this regard. We live in unprecedented times. At this time, the COVID-19 pandemic has presented enormous social and economic challenges, straining all our systems, which are grappling many with numerous difficulties. The pandemic has also made worse the challenges faced by civilians and vulnerable groups, particularly women, girls, people living with disabilities, and children, including especially those in the occupied territory. Containment measures have affected socioeconomic necessities access. Women and girls living under occupation and in armed conflict are subjected to social, economic, and political subjugation, and are also at risk of suffering from lifelong psychological trauma. It's paramount that the occupying power should fulfill its obligations in terms of international law and with the international community to ensure that all barriers to accessing healthcare are eliminated in order to save lives. We would like to conclude by reiterating that illegal settlements leading to dispossession and displacement and human rights abuses are incompatible with international humanitarian law and international human rights law. The policies and practices of Israel as the occupying power are in flagrant violation of UN General Assembly and Security Council resolutions and contravene international law. Thus, the Security Council, as the body responsible for maintaining international peace and security, must take concrete steps against these illegal acts and go beyond mere rhetoric, condemnation, and, to our horror, refusal to hold a detailed session focused on these matters. The recorded failures of the Security Council in ensuring respect for and upholding of the rule of law have dented the integrity of this very important organ and highlighted the urgent need for a response to our call for Security Council reform. We hope that through dialogues of this nature, and I don't know if we fully satisfy the beliefs of President Mandela with the current composition of our panel, I hope we will be able to not only highlight the human rights challenges faced by the Palestinian people, but that we could also propose concrete actions that we as member states and civil society can take, including the strengthening of UN mechanisms to bring greater focus to this matter in order to ensure that we do actively maintain international peace and security for the global community, but in particular for the people of Palestine. Moderator, I thank you for this opportunity. I would conclude by saying, in every country, let us have a dedicated day of protest each month, highlighting the cause and needs of the people of Palestine. I thank you.